My Hero Academia Chapter 230, Sad Man's Parade. So the streak continues, yet again, another great chapter in this arc that just keeps getting better. And there's a lot of fun to be had in this chapter, but other than that, let's get into it. So the chapter opens up with Twice clarifying his quirk, and I suppose this is for anyone who was curious or confused as to how he was able to do what he did at the end of the previous chapter, as well as what he's able to do in this chapter. And most of this information is already known, but there is some stuff that I think is new, or at least that I don't personally remember reading. I'm specifically talking about when he says that his second clone will be even weaker than his first clone, and then until the first clone disappears, he'll be unable to reproduce a different one. I wasn't too clear on this. Maybe he says this when he first uses his quirk in the series back in the training camp arc when he does it on Dabi. Maybe he explains it then, or maybe he explains it later, maybe in the Chisaki arc. Like I said, I'm not really too sure if we do get that information, but I'm glad that he's clarifying it now. I always appreciate when a mangaka takes the time to add more rules or establish the rules or further explain the intricate details of an ability or a concept in a series. And it just makes a series all that much better to me. Like, it gives it more depth and it makes it more grounded, and we just don't have to suspend our disbelief as much and accept that a character could just do something because they can, you know what I mean? But we're also being reminded that the quirk destroying drug bullets are a thing, and I keep reminding myself that, like, oh, they do have this is going to come back later, but I keep forgetting about it because they're kind of like showing us and then they put it away. Like at the beginning of this arc, you know, we have to remember that Yujiko now has these quirk destroying drug bullets, and I think this is also reminding us that they are trying to replicate these things, and that more or less Yujiko is going to do this. I mean, if there is anyone capable of doing it in the world of My Hero Academia, it's totally Yujiko, and this is going to happen. And this is going to not be a lot of fun later on in this story. Like, this is seriously going to ruin a lot of characters, especially the heroes. Like, this is for sure the future of the story, so I just wanted to put it out there that this is coming, and this is like the premonition of it. So then we see what I suppose is Twice's ultimate move in the Sad Man's Parade, which also shares the title of the chapter, and this is just so awesome. This panel is amazing too. I just love it so much, the way it just looks like a horde of zombies all boiling over a pot of, which is basically just somebody's front yard, and just being just this massive presence in front of the Liberation Army members that we see. Just so cool. And also, I think I kind of called this in the previous chapter. I could be wrong, but I think I said that Twice is going to do this and try to take over the city this way. So that's pretty cool that it came to fruition. I think that Twice says that he's made like 20,000 clones just in this chapter alone, and that's pretty accurate because in the following page after reveal of the Sad Man's Parade, at the bottom of that page, like right under when we see Twice's actual, like the actual Twice holding toga, we see what it looks like, and it's insane. It looks like Coachella or something. Like all of these Twice clones in the city, hoarding all of the streets. It's really insane that Twice is capable of doing this. And I mean, it's like Horikoshi trying to tell us in this chapter that Twice is crazy powerful. I mean, he literally says it in one of the panels here through narration. It's like, Twice's quirk is really powerful. So then Reed Destro is like, remarkable. He's overcome his psychological trauma. And this is implying the character arc, I suppose, that Twice had in the previous chapter, when he realized that he was in fact not a clone and that he is the original Jin Buaiguara. So now he can do the Twice clone thing that we see in this chapter. But also he's kind of throwing some shade at Skeptic, because Skeptic did kind of drop the ball here. He essentially had the fight won, but then, you know, what we just talked about happened. And we see that Skeptic is, you know, an insane person, like a real neurotic, crazy, spazzy dude. That was already established a few chapters back when he was talking to Giran and Twice all weird. But now we're seeing that, like, when he's threatened with failure, he gets even more psychotic, and he starts getting like these crazy eyes with the veins coming from his face. He's like, I've only failed once in my entire life. So that's friggin' crazy impressive. Only failing once in your life? But I mean, obviously that's probably not true, but more or less this is probably somebody that can't accept that they have actually failed. Because we see that he's saying, I haven't failed, just give me more time, I'll just fix it, I'll make additional measures. And then Redestro's like, now that's what I like to hear. So the battle with Skeptic and Twice, or just the battle with Skeptic in general, is not over yet. I mean, it didn't wrap up in this chapter, but I think it's still going to be a few chapters before Skeptic finally goes down. But at least he got somewhat of an L. You know, maybe he kind of took some of an L in this chapter. So then randomly, we're getting the name of the Ice Commander, and it's Apocrypha, which means like writings that aren't canon. Sometimes religious related. So is this a clue as to what's going on with this character? Maybe. Not sure at this point, but I think Apocrypha is also kind of like a unisex name, which is what I've been saying since this character has been introduced. I'm not sure what the gender of this character is. I mean, I guess we're led to believe that it's a male, but I have a feeling that this is like a female, and I think that's going to be like the reveal. Like when the hood finally comes off, it's revealed that this is going to be like a female character. I could be wrong, but I don't know. That's just the vibe I'm getting. But also, this is more or less establishing that Apocrypha is like one of the most powerful, maybe even the most powerful Liberation Army member, at least at this point. Because, I mean, aside from the hype that Redestro is giving this character by saying the quantity over quality, and just the fact that Redestro's seeing 20,000 Twice clones in his city isn't really bothering him because the existence of Apocrypha. And speaking of the Twice clones, probably my favorite part of this chapter is when we see all of them coming to help out Mr. Compress and Dabi, like when they're jumping over the houses and whatnot, and they're all saying their own little phrases. They're like, Mr. Compress, your savior Twice has arrived. I'll slaughter everyone. It hurts. Move it, asshole. Toga's gonna die. You two alive? I'm here to back you up. I can still take more. And then Mr. Compress like, would you put a sock in it? Man, I just love this so much. This is like one of the things that really makes this arc really special, rather than it just being an exclusive arc of villains. It's just, there's just so much heart to it as well, which is odd because it's villains. And they actually, Horikoshi is kind of touching on that in this sequence alone. When Twice is like, I'm here to save my comrades. I overcame it with the power of love and courage. And Mr. Compress is like, that kind of sounds like the first chapter of a hero story or something. You're supposed to be a villain. And Twice is like, what's wrong with the villain wanting to save his comrades? So I like it. It's like, you know, being a villain isn't black and white. It doesn't mean you have to be this awful, terrible, cold-hearted sociopath. I mean, you can have some emotions. You can want to save your comrades, but also be a cool bad guy at the same time. So then Twice suggests what I suggested in the previous review, where it just keep duplicating yourself until you could just brute force overpower all of the citizens in this city. But then Mr. Compress is like, hey, wait. If you do that, we're not going to have enough firepower for Gigantomachia to take on. He's like, oh, all right, well then I won't duplicate Dabi. That would be insane. Could you imagine, like, all of the Twice clones duplicating Dabi, and then you just have, like, 1,000 Dabis all spraying blue fire at once? You would just, like, melt this place to the ground. It would be insane. But, also, it's just further name-dropping Gigantomachia. Don't want to talk about him too much, because you already know what's going to happen at the end of this chapter, so I'll get into it then. I also already put it in the video, because it's just so juicy. Just gotta talk about it, because I love a Gigantomachia. And then the following sequence, I think, establishes that Apocrypha is one of the strongest characters in the series quite easily, and if not overall, definitely currently with the current roster we have right now. Like this feat of power where they're blowing away all of the Twice clones with their ice spikes and just a blast of ice in general, looks like. It seems that it's taking down multiple city blocks pretty easily. This looks just like what the Detroit Smash looked like from All Might, at least the nerfed All Might, like the scope that it's capable of producing. So I think this is showing that Apocrypha is definitely up there in terms of power. Like, only the strongest characters in this series are able to replicate feats similar to that of All Might. And if you just compare, like, the frame and the panel of All Might using the Detroit Smash against All for One, it's very similar. So yeah, and this isn't even like the ultimate attack of Apocrypha. This is just a standard attack. So the hype is justified here. Apocrypha is up there. It's not just a throwaway villain. definitely at the top of the power scale. So before I go any further, I just want to touch on one thing that happens in this chapter. It's kind of subtle. So one of the Liberation Army fodders, they're like, we gotta help Skeptic, but don't kill twice. Don't kill the double user. So that's also mentioning one more time that they need twice for his quirk. And we saw that in the previous 2 chapters that they were going after twice for that. But it seems like we kind of forgot about that. Maybe we're moving on. But no, I totally for sure think it is going to happen at this point. They are going to get twice and make him use his quirk on Redestro. So how's that going to happen? Not sure. Forced quirk activation does exist in this world. We saw that it is one of All For One's quirks. He did it on Magni. Does that mean that they have a forced quirk activation quirk? I don't think so, but we have to remember that they do have all kinds of crazy technology and equipment, so I'm sure they have something that could force someone to use their quirk, like some kind of brain thing, some kind of, I don't know, drug maybe, something, but they, for sure, in my opinion, are going to make Twice use his quirk on Redestro, and I think that's going to make Redestro even more broken than he already is. And I think this is one of the ways that maybe they're going to have a chance against Gigantomachia. Like, the Liberation Army seemingly doesn't really have anything to go against him at this point, other than just hidden stuff that we don't know about yet. But I think Redestro, with whatever his quirk is, whatever equipment that he's using, along with duplicating himself off of Twice's quirk, I think is going to even the odds possibly when Gigantomachia shows up. So let's talk about Apocrypha some more. So this broken character is even getting more broken now because we're getting more information about their quirk. And we're seeing that they can control the temperature of the ice. And this just leads to more broken things. So we saw that like they were pulling the ice from the convenience stores and the houses in this city. But evidently there was a limit to that. And Dabi had melted most of, if not all of it at this point, rather than just the residual, main utility ice that Apocrypha is using here. But controlling the temperature of the ice allows them to make it so cold that if it just interacts with water, the water will become frozen as well, gaining more fuel to Apocrypha's fire. You know what I'm talking about with ice. So this is insane because when Apocrypha sends their ice down into the sewer, they can make it cold enough to turn the sewer water into ice, and now you just pretty much have like a whole river at your disposal to make this insane quirk even more insane. Like, Apocrypha's just like floating around on this little ice platform. I mean, I said before that Apocrypha reminded me of Ice Magneto, and I think this is just even taking it further than that. Like, this is like comics Magneto. So now let's talk about Dabi because we're getting some developments on him. So during his battle of rhetoric with Apocrypha, Apocrypha says that in the new society that the Liberation Army is trying to create, the strength of your superpower will be directly connected to your status in society. So this means that the more powerful you are with your quirk, the more skilled you are, the more significant you will be to the Liberation Army. And this is pretty much what Apocrypha is all about. I mean, we found out that they didn't even go to school. Their whole life is pretty much dedicated to becoming more powerful and making their quirk more effective. And I think this is because they found worth in this. They say that Redestro helped them become more powerful. So I'm sure Redestro gave them this purpose in life and said, hey, look, just devote everything to becoming more powerful, being the underling of the Liberation Army, and you will find purpose in life that way. So I think that's why Apocrypha is so just staunch to this morals that they have about this. But also this pisses Dabi off. Dabi's just like, that's just sad. Die already. So this could be reminding Dabi of Endeavor. Yeah, I know. I'm going there. I mean, I have to go there. We have to talk about it. So other than this possibly reminding Dabi of the insane training that Endeavor forced him to go through, and how strength is everything and that you need to be more powerful than All Might. Let me just also mention none of this is confirmed. It's just a theory out there, but it's almost confirmed at this point. So let's go deeper because we're finding out Dabi's weakness. Finding out why he has the burns on his body, and it's because if he uses his quirk for too long, it burns himself. It makes sense. We knew that his quirk was the result of his own scarring and burns that he has, but now we're seeing that it's because if he uses it for too long. So I think this is showing us how he got burned in his training with Endeavor. Endeavor just forced him to use his quirk too much, and I'm sure it got to this real crazy moment where he's like, keep doing it, don't stop, and then it just totally wrecked his body, leaving him deformed the way that he is. So I assume that when this happened, Endeavor probably thought that it killed Dabi, aka Toya. That's why he's like, we can't forget about the accident that happened with your brother, or whatever I'm paraphrasing here, but Endeavor says something along those lines back in the Pro Hero arc. So I think that's what happened with him and Toya, aka Dabi. Like, he was just pushing him too hard in training, and that his blue flames just went crazy from their training, and it just destroyed his body. And maybe Endeavor thought that he was dead, or maybe Endeavor left him for dead, possibly. We have to remember that while Endeavor is somewhat redeemed now, he was a real dirtbag back in the day. So it's really anyone's guess, but I do think that this is all connected to the training that Endeavor put Dabi, aka Toya, through. So then going to the end of this chapter, we're seeing that Yujiko has been keeping tabs on everyone this whole time, and we knew that he was because before they went into Deka City, Yujiko had given them all these communicators. So I just like that it's coming back and reminding us that Yujiko has been paying attention this whole time. He does have their back, but he says something interesting here. He says, if you were to die here, I wouldn't be able to face All for One. So, I think that's confirming that we are going to see All for One again. I mean, he is alive for a reason. He is in the prison for a reason. And I think this is foreshadowing that the prison break is totally going to happen. They are going to take All for One out of prison. And I think that's possibly what the purpose of the high-end Nomus are. Because why does he have 12 of them? Other than just brute forcing over the Hero Association, I think he needs so many of them to assure that he can break All for One out of prison. Could be wrong about this. I don't want to go too much into it because we're just trying to talk about this chapter. But yeah, I mean, that is something. We're also seeing Yujiko kind of giving Tomura some props here. Maybe even showing him some respect. But because when he's waking up Gigantomachia, he's like, your master successor is doing his best out there, even though he's sleep deprived. So Yujiko's kind of acknowledging Tomura here, giving him some respect. He's like, look, he is trying, but things are kind of, lopsided here. It's kind of like, 6 versus 100,000. So, yeah, Gigantomachia, you might want to step in now. They tried, but go out there and clean this up for them. So we see Gigantomachia get up. This is awesome. I'm glad that he's coming back sooner rather than later, because if it was an hour, like what they said, there'd still be many chapters before that, and they're already down Toga. So things are, getting sketchy for them at this point. Even with the whole twice Quirk revelation, it's revealed that Apocrypha is just way too powerful for them to even take a chance on. Because like I said, that was like Detroit Smash level stuff. So it's still going to take some time for Gigantomachia to get to Deka City, but he is still there nonetheless. So we might see him in like 2 to 3 chapters possibly. When he shows up, man, things are going to be outrageous. And again, I'll wait for that. Don't forget that Gigantomachia can do a 5-finger Delaware smash. That's just the beginning of his power, so it's going to be insane. That's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments. Where do you think this is headed? What do you think is happening with Dabi? What do you think is going to happen with Gigantomachia? And what do you think about Yujiko? If you liked the video, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A video that I do on this channel every week. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.